Amy Mayer is the CEO and founder of Fried Tech, an educational technology company providing professional development to educators nationwide. She has a background in instruction and held roles such as Director of Instructional Technology, as well as Director of Staff Development at Huntsville ISD. Her work emphasizes fostering student and teacher engagement and promoting equity in education. And hey, she has hobbies like the rest of us outside of her personal life. She enjoys designing clothes, antique shopping, and audiobooks. But I tell you, she touches base on two of my favorite topics with her new book, Beyond Worksheets. Student engagement and generative AI are passion topics for me, and that is what this is all about. So I touched base on who you are, but if you want to flesh that out a little bit for us, and we'll go from there.
I think you did a really good job. I started my career in Galena Park ISD as a teacher, and from there I went to Conroe ISD. So if a lot of your audience are Texas teachers, they'll recognize those school districts. And I was the instructional technology person for the district in Conroe ISD. And then I also worked at Region 4 and Region 6. And then my last position in public ed was that one in Huntsville ISD, where I was staff development director. And at the time, that district had the largest turnover of any school district in the state. And I was also supposed to help with retention. I don't know if I did, but I tried doing that. So I learned a ton about staff development and instructional technology, professional development, and all of those topics that you and I care about so much in that district.
Okay, now I like that. And so you did a transition from working in ISD, working in education, and I don't want to summarize it to absolute brevity here, but you decided I want to be CEO of my own company, my own instructional technology company. You started up Fried Tech. So I found Fried Tech from YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yours and a number of others during the pandemic that really started churning out content on YouTube during the pandemic. So how did you make that transition from educator to, well, a different kind of educator?
It was really terrifying. I mean, I wanted to work for myself, and I feel so strongly about the vision that I have for what school should be and what learning should be like and what professional learning should be like, that there was never going to be a situation where I could go and work in a school district and employ my vision. It wasn't going to happen. And Huntsville was really as close as I could ever get to that, because I was really aligned with the district leadership in that place and time. But, those situations, even when they're really great, they never last. Like somebody new comes in, situations change, initiatives change and all that. So I really it is truly a passion-driven business. I just cannot, it's one of those things I just can't let it be. I have to try to make it like I think it can be. And that's settled because I had to decide, which part of this do I care about most? So for me, it has settled on professional learning for teachers. I feel like it's such an incredibly important area, and librarians too, if this goes out to other folks in education. So all educators, it has to be better than it is. It cannot continue to be, the horror that it has been for me. And I thought, I know so many ways to make this better and make it meaningful, and people need this and they want it when it's good. I hear school administrators say all the time, my teachers don't want to do professional development. They said no more professional development. And I have to correct them. That may be what you heard. That's not what they said. What they said was they don't want any more bad professional development. All teachers want more good professional development. That is a different matter. So anyway, I just couldn't do anything else. I had to do this.
I like that. So let's transition that then to your vision, to how you saw it being done right. Walk us through the steps of getting Fried Tech started.
Well, I started when I was in Conroe ISD, and I was really, I had a wonderful leader there in that school district. So Dr. Scott Barrett was my leader, and he really had a very, very forward view of instructional technology, even though at the time it was so early in our field that it didn't really even necessarily have a name. And I was in charge of all libraries and librarians which can anyone be in charge of a librarian? No, they cannot, is the real answer. That was my area of supervision, was libraries, librarians, instructional technology across the whole school district. And luckily I worked under Dr. Barrett. He was so forward thinking. And we really shared a belief that creating is really what should be happening in the classroom. So how do we take instruction from being more of a process of receiving to being a process of creating? And then we extended that into what that looks like for professional learning. So my very first academy that I ever developed, it didn't even have a name at first. It became called Wow Academy. But when I first did it, the very first summer I executed it, it didn't even have a name. And what I did is I had the teachers do the projects that I wanted to see their students doing. So I really tried hard to make sure that it wasn't insulting. I'm not having you do elementary school work, but these were technology projects. So I challenged them to think about, what would you be so proud and thrilled if your students could create? Now let's create that. And it was a week-long academy. And my teachers actually voted for the project that they liked best, felt was the most meaningful, and all that at the end. And my group of elementary school teachers who won that very first academy, I'll never forget, I think they were first and second grade teachers, and the project they had created was about animals and their tails. So it was why animals had tails, what were the different types of tails. And they told me when they started on this project, like, this is so silly, nobody's going to vote for us, but this is what our students really need to do and learn, and this is what would really be intriguing to them. And so I encourage them, like, don't worry about what anybody else thinks. You do what your students need and would love, and what's really going to be meaningful to them. And then you win anyway. You win whether you win or not. And they did it, and they won the academy. And it was a big group of teachers, and all these secondary teachers voted for this elementary teacher group. And there was so much excitement around that, because the teachers spent 90+% of the time they were with me creating. And really the questions they were asking were, how do I do this? How do I make this work? How do I make this look better? How do I make this bigger, smaller, or faster, or slower, whatever it was, and they were creating videos and audio, and they had such a wonderful time, and they got a chance to think about how much their students how much more we all learn when we create. So that was the very first thing. That was the beginning of everything. And it just grew from there. And the other school districts started asking me to come into their districts and work with their teachers. And so I got permission to do that from that innovative boss, got permission from my school district to do that. And I started helping in other districts. And I really got so busy doing that it eventually just became a business.
Fantastic. And so you made that transition. And so then I guess, when you did that by yourself, and now you're at a point where you've got double digits of people working with you at Fried Tech, what is the main goal of what is y'all's main goal every week, every day, every year?
It's to do this really respectful learning experience, is what we call it, with the educators that we find ourselves in front of. So now a lot of the professional development that we create and produce is for companies. So we create and produce professional learning experiences for Google and Adobe and Newsela and all kinds of big EdTech companies. And Intuit is a pretty new client of ours, and they actually have an education division now, and we're producing most of their professional learning experiences that happen. So we get a chance to be really profoundly impactful through these companies, but it's a challenge every day to make sure that we only work with companies that will listen to us. Like, we had one company who said, we want you to go in there and teach this to the teachers like they're children. So we want you to do this. And yeah, you're shaking your head right now, and I'm shaking my head right now for the same reason. And we had to say, no, we cannot do that. We will not do that. That's not respectful to the educators who are in front of us. We're there to share X, Y, and Z from your platform or your software, but we are not the experts in this field. We will have teachers in the room who know a lot more about teaching this subject than we do. So we can have them create whatever you like, but we won't put them in a situation where we're pretending this awkward thing like they're children. So what we do every day is just create these situations for teachers to be in where we hope we do use all of the tricks at our disposal to make sure they have a good time. They feel really good about it when they leave. They're bringing some passion maybe back to their craft, because we have a lot of people who are very burnt out right now. They spent another year at the end of their rope, and they thought their rope ended 2 years ago. So we just want to bring back that joy and passion back into that learning and leave people with something that's valuable. And if we can't do that, then at least we leave them feeling better than when they walked in the room that day. So everybody who works here feels super passionate about doing those things. And we work really hard and try our best every day to make those things happen for teachers.
I love it. So here at the college, I am primary point on a lot of technology training, whether it's our D2L Brightspace or helping IT with something Microsoft based. And it can get very hard because we're constantly churning out content and we're getting dismayed when only 5 people show up or only 6 people show up, because we know to us it's important, right?
Right.
And everybody else has their things that they have that are important, and they only have so much time, and they can only bring to you that time that they have to spare. And if it's 5 people, it's 5 people. But to your point, you said before, there is burnout on professional development in general. And I feel like that's across the board, but in higher education and education in general, it does seem a little more difficult, right? And so for you, I posed 2 questions. What do you see as additional difficulties with getting faculty involved with professional development? And then the other follow-up question is, what tools are you starting to learn about or starting to use to engage faculty with professional development?
Yeah, so it's been hard for a while, and part of the thing that makes it really difficult in K-12 is that we're just hemorrhaging staff, and anytime we're in a situation like that where there aren't enough people to fill the positions that we have open, it brings up topics like, can we really ask this of people? And so decision makers inside school districts are very careful what they're asking of people, because the last thing they want is another teacher walking into their room at the end of a long day of professional development and saying, I can't do this anymore. Goodbye, and it's happening in record numbers. So people are leaving the field. Another thing is, just the apathy that people are feeling. Like they feel like I could go and literally, I've read all these stories on Reddit of people going to be bartenders, instead of teaching, and how much better their work-life balance is and all that. And so there's this lack of passion in the field. So we have done a ton of things because you guys continue to exist in your roles, even if, let's say 5 people come and 3 of those 5 people really absorb what you say and they make a change. You had a super big success that day when that happens. We don't exist anymore if that happens. So, it's so important to us that we get people into the room, whether it's a virtual room or a physical room, because these companies will not pay us for even, we may know the profound impact those 3 people can have. We may not get paid though. So, we have to also exist. So we have come up with so many different things. And one thing that we're about to do right now, we haven't fully executed this yet. We're just at the early stages, but we are going to be offering badges and certificates for every learning experience. And we know that's important. People in other fields get that. And then people in our field are like, I went to some PD. I can't even remember what it was. I don't even know what it was about. I'm not even sure what it was called. I don't know who the teacher, we have that kind of, oh, well, whatever. So we're adding these things, and it's going to be an additional after the seat time experience that people are going to be choosing or not to engage in. But what we're really hoping is that it gives people that last bit of sort of closure they need on that learning of, okay, this is what it was about. This is what I was supposed to get out of it. This is what I did get out of it. And here is my proof and my documentation that this actually occurred for me. So for us, we have so many different learning experiences. It's a pretty big task, but we feel like it's important enough to tackle because it helps us achieve our goal of every teacher every day feels better after they come in the room with us and they're certain that they got something of value out of this. It helps them get their next position. It helps them feel more confident in what they do. It helps them increase their, their sense of professionalism and being a part of an important field. It's the most important work in the world. So we just can't leave any stone unturned. And that's one example of what we're doing. Another thing that we do that I think anybody can do, and I think it's so powerful, can be so powerful, and it can be so helpful, is we use social media. We use, audio, video, all those things that I know you're so passionate about and love so much too. And we do things like one of our learning guides, Lori, she's just awesome. A few weeks ago, she had a group of teachers in Mississippi who were getting Google Level 1 certified, and she realized they were having such over-the-top reactions when they got there. They have to take a test, and then they wait a few minutes, and they get the results back of their exams, and they're all still in the room when this happens. And she realized, oh my gosh, people are so elated to get these positive results back. And she started asking them, if anybody's willing, will you let me film you when you're waiting for your results? Just let me know, okay, I just hit submit. I'm just going to film you for a couple of seconds if you don't mind. And she was already seeing the reactions. And then we got all of the reactions. We were able to share those back with the school district. We're able to share those with the company if we're working for a company. And everybody gets to experience that joy. We get to share that with other people on social media when those folks agree. So it's a free thing. It takes a few extra minutes. It takes the thought, but it reminds us that, hey, we can have some fun at work, and this can be a good and happy thing that we're experiencing together, having professional success. So just a couple of ideas, but it's
Fantastic.
something we think about a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And that's really, I think, what's unique about getting to talk to you, for me at least, is that I have a bit of a corporate background, and then late in life, I got into education. And so I come at things a little differently sometimes. And so to hear it coming from somebody that you didn't go corporate, but going from education into doing your own thing, like you have that similar point of view. So that's wonderful. But that's what gives you insight then to take your experiences and to take your knowledge that you've built as CEO of Fried Tech. And now you've thrown it into a book to share with educators at large, is at least how I'm seeing it. And the bits of the book that I've read, that's how I'm taking it, right? You want to take your knowledge, you want to impart it, and you want to help others understand how you see things.
Yes, I do, because a big problem that I had with a lot of the nuggets of wisdom that people tried to give me when I was a teacher and I was attending professional development, I had a couple of different problems with most of the PD that I attended. And I got some excellent PD, but I also, most of the PD I got was not good. So one thing was that whatever I was being asked to do relied on a system-wide change that I could not make as one teacher with one classroom. And that was really frustrating to me. And I see that being frustrating to teachers still all the time. You're asking me to change something that I cannot change on my own. This requires a societal change, a district-wide change, or even a school-wide change. And I'm not in charge of any of those things. So it just leads to a lot of stress. So when I was writing Beyond Worksheets, I really wanted to approach this like, I am one teacher in one school and I have control over one room, sort of. What can I do? Because anything beyond that, it's just stress. I mean, it's just not helpful. So I wanted to accomplish that with this book. And I also wanted to accomplish kind of naming a lot of the problems that teachers are experiencing. So a lot of the issues feel better for you if they have a name and somebody else has helped you name them. And now you have an ally. Okay, there's something wrong. I know what it's called, and I'm not the only one who thinks this. So especially post-pandemic, like I was picking up a lot of great books, but I wasn't seeing the feeling in those books wasn't accurate anymore. It was a pre-pandemic look, which, it's not that there's nothing I can take away from that, but I didn't feel like anybody was capturing the essence of the desperation that people are feeling inside these, especially public school district systems and especially large systems. So I felt like I could bring that and I could name it and I could give administrators and teachers something to talk about with each other. And I could say, hey, student-centered learning is great. That's really the only kind of learning there is. But it can't mean ignoring all of the adult needs of the people who work inside a system because students are the only people who are important, because that's not true. It's not sustainable. And we're seeing the results of years and years and years of a kind of belief among especially K-12 educators that we must like sort of be either saints or martyrs for children. Like I love kids as much as anybody does, but I can't not have a life because I'm in charge of children, because otherwise there's nobody left in the position except for, people who really should have like gone into the clergy because that's the kind of giving heart they have. Well, there's not enough of those people. So we can't sustain a system. It has to be brought back to center. So I thought, man, what could I write a whole book about? I could write a whole book about that because you obviously like you cannot shut me up about that. So
Well, no,
yeah.
good, because I do want to know a little bit more. Like, what is it? Tell those listening, what's in the book for them.
I hope that there are a lot of really practical ideas. Like, you can't write a book and talk about every example that you give from every different person's subject area. But what I wanted to do is give enough examples and enough kind of guidelines so that people could start to put themselves in the position of somebody who creates learning experiences versus passing out worksheets. And I really wanted to convince people that even though that's such a comfort for a lot of us who were raised in an education system where the worksheet thinking is what I call it in the book is really like it's deeply ingrained in us, but we don't think about it because it's almost a cultural thing. And not many of us sit around and think a lot about our own culture. Like, that your culture has been violated when you get really angry about something, and to somebody else, your anger doesn't make sense. Well, that's probably your culture having been violated. And so our culture gets violated. We don't really know why. We don't think about it. We have a lot of emotions around it, but then we just move on and keep doing what we were doing because it's deep in us. So I wanted to give people a way to think about it that, maybe they would think about, is this student-centered or teacher-centered, and why am I doing things this way? And could I make a small shift that would make a big difference? And can I maybe try this thing out? Like, I talk several times in the book about a technique I used in my classroom called question slips, which it's kind of like an ask three before me kind of idea. And it's a really powerful concept because it helps students become more self-reliant. That's why it's such a powerful concept. And I want to challenge people to try little things like that and then notice what happens in their classroom, because I know what's going to happen. I know that it is going to improve learning in their classroom. I know it's going to improve their work situation and how they feel about their position. So I wanted to give them a way to dip their toe in and say, okay, well, this actually might work. And then the confidence to keep going and get to a place where they really do have a student-centered learning environment that is not, taking away all of their personal life at the same time.
Like it. So I got two more questions for you. First one's going to be, what advice do you have to instructors, to teachers, to faculty that maybe they're just nervous to reach out, right? Maybe like they know they have those resources out there. They just don't know how to ask or talk to me. Like, I might think I'm the most personable human in the world, but that may not be true for every individual on the other end of that. So what advice do you have to faculty that just maybe need that little push or a little extra guidance to get started?
So let's say that you're that faculty member and you're like, I know this isn't as great as it could be, but maybe you have grown up in a schooling environment that is not wonderful. A thing that I love to do, and I did this before with a school I worked with for a couple of years, is for a brief part of the time that we're together, put them into a position like students would be in. So create a learning situation that encompasses everybody. Try to keep it short if everybody's going to be involved, but if you can get folks into the room in maybe a mandatory environment. I do like to do this with everybody. So one time I did this experiment and I gave everybody the same worksheet. So everybody in the room had the same worksheet, but they were in 3 different groups. And each of those groups had different rules. So one group, the rule was there was no talking and there were no resources. So I think I gave them a book, a dictionary, or something like that they could use, but that's the only resource they could use, and they could not talk to each other. The other group could work in pairs, and the third group had no rules at all. So they had a certain amount of time they needed to complete the work, and those were the rules that they needed to follow to do that. I lightly supervised the middle group that could work in pairs, and I intensely supervised the people who were supposed to be working independently, because remember, they weren't supposed to speak to each other or anything. And these are adults. So this is a short period of time. They know it's an experiment. But we just did this. And then the third group, I actually encouraged them. I told them, you have no rules, so make sure everybody knows it. You can leave the room if you want. You can go and work somewhere where they can see you if you want, and you can appear to be having a great time so everybody can see you're having a great time. I just want you to play it up, ham it up. And the teachers really got into it, except for my control group, which couldn't talk to each other. So then when we came back together, it was a good time for people who maybe were running their classroom like that. What the principal had told me is, we have these extraordinarily well-behaved, like every student that's in this school is like an advanced, super wonderful kid. This was a private school, and they're telling me they have behavior problems. And so I had been around observing the teachers who said that they had behavior problems. And the problems were coming from teachers who were trying to run their classroom like that. So I did randomly assign those groups, but it gave me a great opportunity, and it gave everybody a great opportunity to talk about how the instruction felt to them instead of talking about their own instruction. So anytime that you can flip things like that and get in a conversation, it's so fun to criticize other people. It's terrible to do it to yourself. So if you can have them see what it looks like, that nobody is ever going to go, oh my gosh, you did that because I was doing that in my classroom. That never happened. Nobody ever got in that group and said, I see what you did there and you're critiquing me and I don't like it. Yep. They didn't know that that's what was happening, but they were all over me to criticize how my bad instruction. So kind of being bad in front of them, I think, or giving yourself a way to be bad in front of them in the way that they are for a brief period of time can kind of open people up to being able to see something in themselves that may be painful to look at. I don't know. That was a super long answer. I hope that helped.
No, I like it. I love going into a room and playing technology stupid for a brief moment.
Right.
To make somebody feel a little bit better.
Yes, exactly.
My shorter version is far less eloquent than yours, though. So I do want to make sure, is there anything that you wanted to touch base on? Anything that I didn't ask? Anything that you're just passionate to get out of your system right now?
Well, I'm really working a lot in AI, and you said that that's something you're passionate about too. I'm doing 5 keynotes this summer. I've done 2 of them, so I have 3 left in the next couple of weeks about AI. So far, I've been talking to math teachers, which is not my normal group of people to talk to, but it's been really interesting to talk to teachers about AI and cheating, which everybody wants to talk about, but also,
answers.
Right. I found some, Brad, because I had to, because people paid me
to
absolutely. Speech. So I was like, ooh, better figure this out. But yeah, like ways to refigure those assignments so that they are AI proof, like what are we doing now? And of course, there are some fantastic instructors out there who their assignments are already AI proof because they're personalized. They're in this certain situation where they kind of accidentally already thought through this. But what does everybody else do? Because if you are doing worksheets still, if you are not beyond worksheets right now, you got a big problem because AI is super good at worksheets. So, it's time to think about this if you haven't already. And it's going to change everything. Part of my speech is just to convince people this is not like your, crappy principal you got last year who will probably go away. Like if you can just wait it out and that principal will leave eventually. This is not going away. This is a huge field. It's been in the works literally since the 1950s. It is varied. It is profound. This is going to change the whole world. the way we do everything, and we have got to change the way we do instruction if we haven't already, because it really just got completely overnight, it just completely became useless unless we make that change. So it's high time for you and me. We got to get in front of these folks, and everything we do cannot be optional anymore. This is now mandatory. And so we have to teach our leaders too. Try to get your leadership into rooms and help them understand this change that's happened. What you and I do is no longer optional for educators. They need us worse than they ever have, even if they don't know it yet. They do.
100%. No, I really appreciate that. And I laugh, you talk about finding solutions to find ways around or detect the AI cheating. And I think the other part of that conversation is the one that I'm working on my side for faculty, is how to embrace the technologies that our youth are now using. How can we embrace what they're doing to help deter that temptation to cheat with AI? Things like, encouraging or incorporating voice to text into outlining a paper and generating their ideas that way versus writing it down and stealing it from somewhere else. So it's not just AI has changed everything, but how generationally they're thinking about things so much differently. And that's another topic, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, I could go passionately on and on about, but I don't want to keep you. I do apologize. But I will ask to finish it out for the people, where can they find your website? Where can they find your content? Where can they find that book of yours?
Awesome. Well, thank you for asking that. And we'll have to follow up on this conversation because I do want to know all of that stuff. So if people go to fried.tech, FRIED.TECH, then they'll find everything there. We have a really robust online school that is guaranteed not like anything that you have seen before. It is, I don't know how better to say it, like it's not crappy. It's really, really good stuff. It's very carefully designed learning experiences, just like everything we do. And you can find a page that is all about the book. It'll all be right at the top of that website. Our online school is called Fried Online. We have memberships available so that you can take all of our courses. And I know that it's great. I can tell you like a numerical value that our online learning experiences by the people who take them are rated 4.7 out of 5. That is the same rating as our face-to-face learning experiences. And that is, I know I do not have data from other companies, but I know that that we are the best. I know we are. I'm certain of it.
That's the important part.
Absolutely. Right. Exactly. Thank you so much, Brad.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Amy, thank you so much. This has been absolutely a pleasure. I was a little nervous to jump back into doing a conversational like this, so that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you made it so easy. I really appreciate it. Great questions.